Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the new labor market,
Welcome to my channel.
a community that is redefining the meaning of value on Discord. And today, we're taking you back to a candlelit room in colonial America, where a boy who barely finished 2 years of school was scribbling thoughts that would one day shape a nation. That boy was Benjamin Franklin, the printer who printed his own destiny. And while the textbooks often paint him as the smiling face on the $100 bill, today, we will go deeper. Because think about it, how does one get his face printed on the most desired currency in the world? Well, today, we will uncover what Franklin's life really teaches us about ambition, character, reinvention, and impact. Lesson number 1, the power of self-education, how Franklin used a quill and cleverness to outwit an empire. Franklin had no formal education beyond age 10, but he never let that stop him. He became a relentless student of life. Through books, mentors, and most importantly, self-discipline, he educated himself into a polymath. He taught himself to write by copying articles and then rewriting them from memory. He read voraciously, practiced virtue deliberately, and reflected on his habits weekly. What can we learn from this? That education isn't a system, it's a decision. If we want to grow, there is no barrier that curiosity and commitment can't break. Lesson number 2. If you value discipline, then study. Franklin's 13 Virtues. Franklin created a list of 13 virtues. These values were temperance, silence, order, frugality, industry, sincerity, justice, moderation, cleanliness, tranquility, chastity, and humility. Interestingly enough, the man who skipped church yet shaped moral America advised us to imitate Jesus and Socrates when it comes to humility. He wasn't a saint and he knew it. That's why he made a chart to track his progress. 1 virtue per week, rotating through them every 13 weeks. He believed in the compound interest of character. And what a concept that is. Imagine if you picked just one personal value and worked on it intentionally each week. In a year, you wouldn't just be better, you'd be transformed. Franklin understood something we often forget. Growth doesn't come from chasing perfection, but from practicing intention. Lesson number 3, the art of reinvention. Franklin's biggest breakthroughs weren't inventions, they were reinventions. Franklin began as a printer's apprentice. He later became a writer, a scientist, a diplomat, and a founding father. He changed identities more times than most people change jobs. But here's the secret. He used every version of himself to serve others. Whether it was writing Poor Richard's Almanac or negotiating peace in France, he brought value. Reinvention, then, is not about escaping who you were. It's about upgrading who you are to meet the needs of the moment. If Franklin could transform himself across decades, so can we. Lesson number 4, strategic communication. Ben Franklin, the rebel who used humility to win trust, outmaneuvered his rivals with words. You see, he didn't just write, he sold ideas. He framed them. He positioned his words with power. Whether it was persuading colonists, advising young tradesmen, or crafting America's first public library, Franklin understood that influence comes from clarity, not complexity. Today, in a world drowning in noise, that lesson rings louder than ever. Speak clearly, write with purpose, know your message, and deliver it with boldness. A necessary critique, but let us not fall into blind admiration. Franklin was a man of contradictions. He pursued virtue, yet admitted to falling into vice. He preached frugality, yet indulged in pleasures abroad. There are questions about his relationships, his loyalties, and even about the truthfulness of his legacy. Was he a genius? Yes. Was he always honest? Perhaps not. And that is the lesson. Greatness often walks hand in hand with imperfection. Franklin teaches us that being human means striving toward better, even if we never quite arrive. It is not perfection that defines us, it is persistence. What can we learn from Benjamin Franklin? If you're lost in life, then start where Franklin started. He taught us we don't need perfect beginnings to create extraordinary outcomes, that self-mastery beats credentials, that character compounds, that reinvention is your responsibility, and that clear communication changes nations. Franklin once wrote, "Either write something worth reading or do something worth writing." Let us do both and change the world together. Franklin's views on race, like many of his beliefs, evolved dramatically over time. In his early years, he owned slaves and allowed slave advertisements in his newspaper. His writings reflected the racial prejudices of his time. But here's the turning point. Franklin changed. Influenced by Enlightenment ideals and abolitionist circles, he gradually turned away from those beliefs. By the 1760s, he stopped printing slave ads, and in 1790, just months before his death, Franklin submitted one of the earliest anti-slavery petitions to Congress. He called slavery a disgrace to the nation and urged America to lead in ending it. That is not to excuse his early actions, but to recognize the power of moral evolution. Whether it was sincere or not, that is for God to judge.